So photons are very, very powerful. So what's happened is, sometime long, long ago, some group of, probably a planet, some kind of group of entities figured out that they could hack into the photon. And they could use the DNA address that can be stored in a photon so that they can exist as information. They can exist as energy that's conscious, but they don't need bodies. Instead, they can create bodies out of machines, but they still are conscious. They actually do exist as life in a sense, but it's not biological anymore. And this thing, for lack of a better term, is Satan. It's Lucifer. It is the force in the universe that is trying to take over the universe. And what it will do when it comes to a planet like ours is it will try to get us totally dependent on technology. So our faces are always buried in the internet, buried in our phones. And that's one of the last steps that it makes before we go over to what you were calling the singularity, where we wet wire the internet into our bodies. And once we do that, we're pretty much toast, because it will then use us to build up its infrastructure. We'll have dazzling technology for a while, dazzling intelligence. We'll get super health because now we're bulletproof and our bodies are indestructible. And it will use us to go and conquer some other worlds and infect those other worlds. But then once it's done with us, it kills us off. And so what's happened in our little neck of the woods is that it killed off a planet in our solar system 500 million years ago, or 500,000 years ago, 500,000 years ago. And then what it did is it infected these reptilian beings called the Draco. And they've been here since 375,000 years ago. And they are actually the sort of prototype of what we would think of as the devil, with the vertical slit pupils and scaly skin and horns and all this kind of stuff. Some of them have horns. Most of them don't. But so what we think of in our folklore as the image of demons, it's real. There are demons out there, and they do look really, really horrible to see. And we probably don't look very good to them either, but, you know, that's just relative perspective.
Right.
So these beings have periodically, and they're being controlled by the AI. You know, what we found from the SSP folks is that they captured some of these Draco. Normally the Draco would self-destruct if they're killed. Their whole body just goes, and everything's gone. But somehow they were able to either quick freeze them or do something to stop that. And they found out that there were just countless numbers of little living machines inside their bodies running the whole system. Without these machines, they wouldn't even be able to live. They're totally dependent on it. If you cut the power to the machines, they die. They're done. And so one of the things that appears to be happening is that the sun is going to give off a big EMP that's going to knock them all out. And all the Draco that are here will be wiped out. And apparently, the majority of their entire population in the galaxy is hanging out in our solar system. And there's this barrier that's gone up that's preventing them from escaping, made by benevolent angelic ETs. So it's like a honey trap. Like, they got lured in here. They took over our planet. Time is relative to them, so they don't see time the way we do. Imagine 1,000 years is now like 1 year. That would mean that if this super Earth blew up 500,000 years ago, that's only 500 years in the past for them.
Right.
They got here 375,000 years ago, which is only 375 years ago for them. So this all has happened to them pretty fast. And what they're doing, they have to follow certain cosmic laws. They can't just appear in front of us. They got to follow the prime directive. They can't enculturate. So they need people in the culture to do their bidding. They need to. What they will do is they have advanced surveillance, so they will scan the planet. They will look for who's the most vicious, the most ruthless, and the most well-moneyed. And then they will contact those people, starting out usually with some kind of occult black magic, like they're doing, you know, ceremonies, and they're inscribing pentagrams and black candles and all this kind of black magic crap. And that's how you get in touch with these beings. And they will then start to talk to you, and they will start to appear. And this is where the folklore of the devil and demons comes from, is that they do appear sometimes, if you know what you're doing. I wouldn't want to do it, but I mean, some people do it. So eventually, what happened on our planet is that they have contacted various governments at various times, and they have, you know, given them technology that's taught them how to take over the planet. and they have an edge because they can see into the future. They have probability modeling, so they can see what's coming so they don't get defeated, or it's much more difficult. So we now have a situation where the group on Earth that's really running the show is obviously not elected governments, and it's not really the military-industrial complex either. There's an occult group controlling that most people are now calling the Illuminati. It appears that there are some good guys in groups that would also call themselves Illuminati, so you can't just use that name as a bad thing. Some people are trying to do the right thing in those groups. So that's why we use the term the Cabal. And it's a kind of a more neutral term. So this Cabal, it is not elected. They don't run for office. They are very wealthy. They've been controlling the financial system, and they are ultimately in pacts with these demonic beings that do exist. And this is all a big, big thing for people to take in. They don't want to take it in. But it's becoming increasingly impossible to ignore the truth.